101 review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. He is the author of the book Operational Rhythm, no other than Mr. Walter Dusseldorp. Welcome to Book 101, Mr. Walter, and can you please introduce more about yourself?
Sure. Thank you, Danny, for inviting me today on your book review. It's a pleasure being here. Would you like to dive into me telling you a little bit about myself, or where would you like to start today?
Yes, please, can you tell us about yourself first before we
Sure,
dig
no
into your
problem at
book?
all. Okay. I'm Walter, also known as the Dutch Mentor. I'm born and raised in Holland. Came to America in 1988. Have spent a lifetime, of course, learning. Most of my time has been spent in healthcare, both initially as a provider, hands-on, one-to-one care, and then over time I went back to school and became a healthcare executive and worked my way up through the ranks all the way into the C-suite. One of the things I felt very passionate about, other than patient care, is about leadership, because I experienced the pitfalls of being a high performer, doer, right? Somebody who's on the front line, who is then selected to go into a management role, but found out very quickly that doing and leading are two different things. And even though I have my bachelor's degree, my master's degree, my fellowship, none of those really taught me how to become a highly effective leader. So I was lucky enough to work with a mentor, Mark, starting in 2012, and through his guidance, I started working on a pure leadership power approach in order to be able to set people up for success. And really, I look at it this way: those people who go transition from the front line to management, doesn't make a difference what level. Most of them experience a phenomenon called the valley of despair. Really difficult transition from doing to leading, because leading is not is a whole different attribute and a behavior. And what happens by default, people continue to do, and nobody feels good about that, including the person who's doing the doing. So I've designed a program, and that's why I've written three books around. And today we're going to talk about the third book, the Operational Rhythm book, because that's really where it all comes together, is that we have an opportunity to really dive deep first into developing self awareness. It is very difficult to become a highly effective leader if you don't understand yourself. And out of that, you want to build a personal brand, you want to have an individual development plan, you want to understand behaviors of highly effective leaders. You want to understand what are the key responsibilities of leader, how to motivate, how to inspire, and how to build meaningful partnerships. And that all starts with I. But leadership is really not about I, it's all about we or them. So that's what we want to start transitioning. How can we utilize these skills now that we have a better understanding on how am I perceived and what leadership abilities I need to bring to the table? How can I start tackling opportunities and problems in the workplace? And I start using A3 thinking, which is the second book in the series, where people learn to understand the root causes rather than reacting to something. We respond to something instead of putting a band-aid on something. We actually want to understand the deep root cause and putting new processes into place that are more sustainable. And then the last piece of the puzzle, and that's really what the book is all about, and that it's learning how can I establish this highly effective operational rhythm with my team and lead my team in order to be able to get the outcomes that we desire. So I'll bullet them in short now, and I'm sure that we have an opportunity to dive a little deeper into that. But an operational rhythm is about having the right people in the right positions. It's making sure that we are truly unified in our approach, aligned to the North Star metrics of your organization, making sure they are connected to meaningful metrics, both driving metrics and outcome metrics. And here's the most important thing, that we need to have a cadence of accountability. It's the weak link in the chain. And of course, we need to take actions and countermeasures depending on the results of our measurements. It's only when you start establishing this operational rhythm on a daily, weekly basis that you can really change your culture from performing to high performance. I worked closely with many teams who are way underperforming, and just in a short period of time, 12 to 18 months, can become the top performer of the organization, or for that matter, if it is regional or nationwide, in the nation, as long as they learn to slowly adopt the processes of an operational rhythm that leads to the outcomes that they desire. So that's my introduction. I love what I do. I'm very passionate, and it's all done in one-to-one mentor programs. I'm working with teams on a one-to-one basis. I teach classes, and it really is, for me, it is exceptionally important for people to understand that it is about behavior change more than even teaching new technical skills. And in order to change behavior, it takes time. So my philosophy as a mentor is to work with people on a weekly basis for an extended period of time to help them not only understand a better way of leading and managing, but also to understand how difficult it is to establish new normals. And I'll leave it at that. Maybe you have a few questions as a follow up.
Mr. Walter Dusseldorp, thank you so much for sharing your books to the world. So let's talk about the team dynamics. How do communication patterns influence the operational rhythm of a team?
Yeah, so that's a great question, right? There's nothing that I can do that overnight to establish an operational rhythm. This is part of building a culture of high performance in an organization. So when I come in, I rarely start at this point, right? I really start first with the team and the individuals to, having a much deeper appreciation of self awareness and to develop a journey map and really demonstrating to them how difficult it is for the individual to go through change. And then I'll task them to adopt something like going to the gym or drinking more water or reading more books, but see how long it takes for them to make a sustained effort to make create a new normal that it is just normal to drink 8 glasses of water. And people will see that often by week number 2 or 3, they lose the motivation and they fall back onto old habits. And that is the first prong. It's exceptionally important. Now, to get buy-in to this, because I cannot tell people to do this, you want to get people to come along to follow. It is important that you have the support of the leadership. So they too need to demonstrate not only by paying somebody to come in to do this or to buying books or to support coaching and mentorship, but you want the leadership to be engaged in the process itself. So it needs to be a top down, bottom up approach. The commitment that organizations need to make that this is not something that can be done overnight. And we've seen it time and time again that organizations will bring in professional development companies and they will teach modules via computers, or they will bring people in for on a quarterly basis and they have these big conferences. The problem is with all of them is that it's a great social networking event. It's really fun to be there. But by Monday morning, they have forgotten 95% of the things that they learned. And that's where we go wrong. In order to change habits and behaviors or our behavioral capacity, we need to do things daily. And then we need to hold ourselves accountable weekly. And through that process of doing it over and over and over, including allowing failure to take place, but we need to fail fast, fail forward, we can make the strides of building a high performance culture based on both technical skills and behavioral capacity.
Certainly. Very well said, Mr. Walter. Beautifully articulated. So about the performance and results, let's talk about this topic. How does operational rhythm affects a team ability to meet deadlines and goals?
Yeah, that is always the elusive one. We first need to accept in today's world that 70 to 80% of the things we set out to do never come to full circle. We don't reach the ultimate goal. Often we end up lowering our own standards to say that we met it, but in reality we did not. So knowing that and having that in the back pocket, if you go back to making sure that you have the right people around the table, that we all equally committed and buying into what it is that we need to do. And now we need to learn to measure. And what we tend to do in the world is to measure outcomes. And we look at them on a monthly basis, like looking at a P&L on a monthly basis, or looking at a quality metrics on a monthly basis. First thing, we need to change the way we want to think about outcomes by looking at drivers. So if I want to make an improvement, to an outcome, we need to understand what variables go into it. What do I need to do on a day-to-day basis to get a more predictable outcome? And that's the measure we need to make. So I'll give you a very simple example. And this goes, this translates to everything else that you do. I am 250 pounds and I want to be 220 pounds. So the outcome of whatever I'm going to do is going to be losing 30 pounds over 6 months. Now I can get on the scale every single day and I can be up a pound, I can be down a pound. I can be up a pound and down a pound. Maybe I can be down 5 pounds, but those are all outcomes. But if I want to make a sustained effort to understanding on how I can lose weight, I need to start learning what goes into my mouth. What am I putting into my system? How many calories, how many fibers, how many fats, how many carbs? And the thing is that we need to, we tend to change five things at the same time, and then we start losing weight, but we have no idea which one of those five is actually resulting in weight loss. And that is really true in business as well. So we need to learn to understand that if we want to change something, we take one, maybe two non dependable variables and we make that change. And then we carefully measure. So let's say on my weight loss journey, I cut out all carbs. I go on a carb free diet and I start seeing that I'm losing weight. Well, now I can relate that back to the fact that I'm not eating any carbs. If I would have done that with three things, I don't know if it was the fat, the carbs, or the fibers, right? So we want to make sure that we work smarter by taking one, maybe two things at the same time, carefully measure them on a daily basis, watching both the driver and the outcome. And if we're getting a desired result, we want to do more of it. If we don't have a desired result, we need to learn to stop doing it because that's waste. And then we need to pick up maybe another variable, try something different that leads to the outcome that you desire. And that's what operational rhythm is about. So it's not about the outcome, it's about the driver. So when I talk about the cadence of accountability, I encourage if you want to make a change in a process or a system or an opportunity, you look at it on a daily basis and you bring the team together on a weekly basis to be accountable to each other. I said I was going to do A, B, and C. At the end of the week, I better report back on how well I executed against A, B, and C. And if I came up short, we don't make excuses, but we say, I did A and B, I did not do C. This week, I'm going to do C, D, and E. I'm going to work extra hours to get F across the finish line as well. And of course, if you fall short of expectations or you did not do it, there needs to be some level of accountability to that. But it does not mean that we need to be mean to each other. It could be as simple as making a donation, buying coffee, putting lunch on the table, dropping a ping pong ball in an empty bottle to say, listen, I was not responsible. I was not accountable to the team. And that is really the cadence of accountability and taking the appropriate actions in order to get the results that we want. But again, this needs to be done over a sustained period of time. To change a normal takes at least 90 to 120 days. And if it is something really hard, that could take even longer than that. And I can provide you an example if you want.
Certainly. Accountability and discipline, people, is the key. So, what metrics or indicators that can be used to assess the effectiveness of a team's operational rhythm?
Yeah, so I use a very basic process for that. So you can do it many different ways. Where you can do it to complex surveys, you can do it on a quarterly or annual basis. But I like a tool, a thermometer that normally is upright. If you place it horizontal and you place 0 to 10, you put it somewhere on the unit, and you get little red dots, or green dots, or yellow dots, and you tell your team during the process of the day, they can put dots on the thermometer. 10, the team is working in a highly effective way, and there could be green dots. Or the team is not working together at all and use red dots and score the 0 to 1. So as a leader, I can actually walk by that thermometer and get a quick pulse check to see how well my team is working together. And if we start seeing more yellows and reds, that means I need to bring the team together, make an assessment to say, what is it that we are missing? Right. And often it comes back to communication. Right. We did not, there's some, we're not unified in our approach. There is a misunderstanding of what it is that we're trying to accomplish. So team effectiveness is a key requirement to become a high performance team. And of course, there are two elements to that is trust and engagement. And trust is one of the non-negotiable. If there's no trust on a team, then we can't perform. If an engagement often follows that. So one thing as a leader you want to do in a team effectiveness is to understand what level of trust do they have. Trust comes from clarity, from mission, vision, understandable, speaking the language of the people who are on the team itself, having the right people on the team. And then engagement is not to do things to them, but to actually having people be part of the solution. And through that process, you can build a high performance team, and that will give you the outcomes you desire, albeit growth, or cost efficiency, transformation, safety, quality, and that's how you establish that.
So, Mr. Walter, what would be your advice for those people out there who want to be a leader in their own field?
So the first thing that a leader can do is to admit that they don't have all the answers themselves. And we have seen it time and time again that leaders come up through the ranks. They were frontline leaders, and then became managers, directors, all the way to the VP or C-suite level itself. They don't have the bandwidth per se to be able to build all of these high performing teams themselves. So first thing that leaders need to admit is that I can do it all myself and I need to get help. Now, some organizations will have performance improvement uh, uh, departments, but most of them don't. So it is okay to reach out. And if you are underfunded and you have no money to do this, the least thing you can do is to find a book. So the book that I wrote, Operational Rhythm: The Secret Pulse of High Performance Teams, is actually a guide. It almost gives you step by step guidance on how to establish this into your organizational culture. And if you do this well, if you stick to it, we know that we have very predictable outcomes that can lead to high performance. So again, the leader needs to really see that what tools are there at my disposal. How can I seek mentorship from a person like myself in order to guide me through the process, in order to establish a culture of high performance, and that is often a missed opportunity. And leaders, I'll give you a scary statistic. 95% of leaders truly believe that coaching, mentorship, and leadership development is key to their organizational success. Sadly, only 5% of those leaders take meaningful action. Right. So it is really up to the leaders themselves to either go out and find somebody who can help them or find books from which they can learn in order to implement these. So it is, again, don't wait for somebody to do things for you. Take the bull by the horn and take action yourself. So pick up a book, reach out to a coach or mentor, and see how they can help you build a high performance team that has sustainability to it.
Thank you for your advice, Mr. Walter. So, what will be your short term and long term goals in writing?
Yeah, my long-term goal is to continue to provide value. So I was given solid advice a long time ago. There are three things that I want to do on a daily basis. I want to be consistent, so I want to make sure that I have a presence on LinkedIn. So if you listening, you want to connect me on LinkedIn, send me a connection request. I post daily advice and insight. So the consistency is one. Two is I want to add value. And three, it needs to be quality. So it needs to be up to date and real time and relevant. So the combination of those three things, I build relationships. Anybody who's listening, I welcome you to come to my website at thedutchmentor.com and book a free consultation. Join my weekly free open coaching call on Thursdays at 12 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, where you can join the conversation. It's a fresh new topic per week. My goal to my writing is to have a material impact. And I always say, our conversation today, Daniel, if we can have a material impact on one or two people, then it's mission accomplished, right? This is not about being a bestseller. This is not about selling 10,000 copies. I want to make a difference in people's lives because at the end of the day, in healthcare, that will impact the patient, or in personal life, this will help people establish a rhythm that is better for their family values and health outcomes. And that's really my dream.
Good luck to your goals, Mr. Walter. So, how can a team recover from disruptions to each operational rhythm?
Yeah, well, disruption is going to happen. I'm going to give you a very simple equation. It is E, that stands for events, multiplied times R equals O. O are the outcomes. So from every single disruption, there's going to be an outcome, no matter what happens. But we as humans need to learn to respond to things rather than to react to things. So there's a great book written by a friend of mine. Is called "Leading with the Upper Brain." We have two parts of the brain. We tend to react with the lower brain, that fight for flight, type of response. We don't really listen. We get anxious. We just say things off the cuff without thinking about it. Disruption is going to happen. It is. We need to learn to sit back and absorb the information, process the information, and be more rational in our responses, including to accept failure. And there's nothing wrong with something going wrong because there's lots to be learned from that. The worst thing we can do is to react to it, and that often causes greater disruption downstream, and especially in front of your other peers. So again, E plus R equals O. Learn to respond to events. I promise you, it will lead to better outcomes.
Certainly. So, before we wrap up our discussion, Mr. Walter, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, Food 101, and its fifth season, people. Fifth season with my co host, Chef Alessandro, one of a specialty chef in one of the five-star hotel in downtown Toronto. Please do listen to our latest episode. We're reading our letters senders all over the world. So, how does operational rhythm contribute to the long term sustainability and success of a team?
So the key word is sustainability, and it is one that is very elusive to most teams. Like I said, we tend to be reactive. We try to fix things what we see based on assumptions, and only have to come back to repair, make the same repairs over and over and over. So I'm saying that we need to learn to slow things down a little bit, to really understand the root causes of our problems, coming up with sensible solutions that are measured to make sure that they are working. And once we have validated that they're working, we can implement them. And once they have been implemented, we want to continuously measure them until they truly become new normals. And even at that time, we should measure them on a minimally on a monthly basis. So what I encourage people to do is to use a scorecard system. Write these down. Write down a simple metric. For example, I want to go to the gym 3 times a week. So improve my health. Go to the gym. How often? 3 times per week for 20 minutes. I'm going to do it on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And I need to hold myself accountable to that by coloring the blocks in. If I didn't go, it's red. If I did it sort of kind of, it's yellow. If I did it successfully, it's green. And by using the color metrics, you can see on a weekly basis how well you performed. If you have more yellows and reds, that means you're off track and you have to take a countermeasure. You have to take an action. There needs to be a consequence. And this holds true in every single metric that you're trying to pursue. Of course, not, some metrics are easy to accomplish, others will be more difficult. But if you measure them on a daily basis and hold people accountable on a weekly basis, and you do this for a sustained period of time, the outcomes are more likely to be sticky, and therefore the organization will be more successful.
Certainly, Mr. Walter Dusseldorp. Thank you so much for sharing your books to the world, and we are looking for more empowering books like this. So, can you please invite our listeners to support all your books? Mr. Walter,
Yes.
can you please invite our listeners?
Sure. I invite all people to come and take a listen to the books. Come to Amazon and find these books online under my name, Walter Dusseldorp, or make sure that you pick up a copy and share that with your team members. It is
Yes.
key to your long term success.
Yes, indeed. Yes, people. Let's support Mr. Walter Dusseldorp because if you support him, more and more and more empowering books like this to come. So, Mr. Walter, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Daniel, for the invitation, and it was a great conversation.
More to come, people. See you soon.